The News Round on Off the Ball.
With Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
This is News Talk.
Hello there. So we've got a busy Wednesday evening show for you. Ronan O'Gara is going to join us on Wednesday Night Rugby after 8 o'clock. Football show with Damien Delaney. Chris Shields on goodbye to Dundalk and a send-off to remember. We have hurling semi-finals in Munster and Leinster this weekend to look forward to. Ursula Jacobs will join us this hour to preview. 53106 is the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Rich McCormack, hello to you.
Well, Joe.
Will O'Callaghan, a rest day? A rest day? What the hell is this?
I know, it's painful, but look, it'll get us in the mood for Friday and Saturday when we're going to have, you know, after what's been a pretty exhilarating week, 4 quarter-finals to look forward to, and they have a lot to live up to, particularly after the action that we saw on Monday. Like, it's very hard to live up to what happened in those two fixtures. And then we got a bit of punishment with the two games yesterday, particularly with the fact that Ukraine robbed us of the opportunity of seeing some penalties at Hampden by scoring in the 123rd minute. So I'm a little bit thankful of the couple of rest days, actually, truth be told, given everything we've watched over the last 48 hours. And we've got some intriguing quarterfinals coming up.
Yeah, it's taken it took me a second to digest the last couple of days. So on Saturday, we had, just to re-jog everything and put it into some kind of context after the storm that was the last few days, the Danes beating the Welsh by 4-0, Italy taken to extra time by Austria. Then we go into Sunday, the Dutch crashing out, followed by Belgium against Portugal. Goodbye, Portugal. Monday night, then things ratcheted up several levels, I think it's fair to say. Spain 5, Croatia 3, followed by game of the tournament, I think. I mean, you can take your pick for sure. We all have our favourites. France 3, Switzerland 3, into extra time, into penalties. 14 goals across those two games. And then yesterday, well, England 2, Germany 0, I thought was pretty absorbing in its own way, Richie. And now breathe. And now breathe. No, I thought it was a good game. Sorry, that's not meant to be some kind of euphemism. I actually thought England-Germany was a very interesting game.
I think it was the word used by a lot of the British media to actually talk about the quality of the game. I to be honest with you, I thought the majority of that game was a chore. I didn't think either side really brought a lot to the party in terms of entertainment. Obviously, it was absorbing from the point of view that you want to see who of these two behemoths is going to come out the better of it. But as regards quality of game, like if there were any two other names above the door, you would have switched over. If the names of the teams were switched last night, if we were watching Ukraine and Sweden and they produced that match, then we would have been switching over fairly handily. Last night was really entertaining, I thought, between Sweden and Ukraine, and Sweden desperately unlucky, not only because obviously they conceded in the added time of extra time, but they hit the woodwork twice through Emil Forsberg in the second half. And on the balance of play, you could argue that they deserve to go through, and it's Ukraine who are heading to Rome to play England on Saturday evening. And this is what we're kind of wondering now, is whether it's going to be a procession for England towards the semi-finals and maybe finals. But the one hope that I would have on that side of the draw will be Denmark, who, after just the worst possible starts to the tournament, are looking really good. Not just in terms of from where they've come from, they're genuinely looking like a side that could put it up to anybody in this tournament.
Your weekend planning as follows. Friday night it is Switzerland against Spain. It's a pity. I mean, I quite like the Swiss, we all did, but really France against Spain would have a nicer ring to it. But it's Switzerland against Spain, 5 o'clock Friday. Then Belgium-Italy is the 8 o'clock game on Friday. And as you said, England are in Rome 8 o'clock on Saturday evening against Ukraine. Before that at 5, Czech Republic and Denmark. Now we've Damien Delaney on the football show after 9. I know, without giving any spoilers, having chatted to him, he thinks England to beat Ukraine not as easily as Duffer was saying, though. Duffer thinks this is a foregone conclusion. Ukraine can't even run around. They're all overweight and unfit. He thinks that would be sticky-ish, and it's in Rome, obviously. But England to come through that, and he said Denmark to beat them in the semi-finals. So that's Damien's take on the way after 9 o'clock. I was listening to some Talk Sport this morning. I was like, today's the day to tune into that.
Good Lord, no.
Connect it to my veins, I said.
Oh, it's like GB News for sport.
So good. To say that the train of destiny has left the station is an understatement. I mean, it's on, Will. In fact, I'm not sure, after listening for about an hour this morning, I'm not sure there's a way England can't win this tournament.
Oh, did you hear Jose Mourinho, who was using the phrase "we" on Talk Sport this morning when he was talking about England too, and was pretty much assured that they were going to at least get to the final and that there was a very good chance the football would be coming home this summer. I had a lot of confidence about England's chances before the European Championships, I should say. And look, the way the tournament has played out, the dominoes have fallen nicely for them. Like, this is an incredibly easy route to get to a final potentially. But it was very easy to win a game against Iceland a few years ago. And we have to remember this was England's second ever win in a knockout game in the European Championships. That's the pedigree that they've got in this competition. And the evidence in terms of what we've seen on the field, England have not been good. And like, even against Germany were appalling. They've got ripped apart by their former players today because of the lack of threat that they carried during that game. The one chance that really fell to them was that Thomas Muller breakaway, which I think everyone expected him to score. If he scores, the complexion of the last 20 minutes of that game are entirely different. I think that was a huge relief to England. And then, once again, rejuvenated-looking Shaw and Grealish coming in on the left-hand side was able to create a chance and get it across for Harry Kane, who was statuesque for most of the game, but was in the right place at the right time when he was left on to head the ball home. England win 2-0. Southgate feels somewhat vindicated because of the very pragmatic side that he picked ahead of kickoff. Well, could you imagine the slack that Gareth Southgate would be getting right now if Germany had won that game 1-0? Like, I'm not sure if this was all down to an England masterclass, lads.
That's true of any match, though. Like, if they lose it, the manager is going to get stick, especially in the knockout stage of a tournament. And again, Lo Desjam to join the love train for England tonight. Like, since Wenger and Eriksson took over the manager's job, like, they have qualified routinely for tournaments, like pretty much beyond that Beckham Greece free kick where they needed to get over the line the last day. Everything since then has been plain sailing in terms of qualifying. And what everybody from an England perspective wanted was a team that could go to a tournament and play tournament football and get to the latter stages. People are obviously pointing out that the draw was in their favour 3 years ago, at the World Cup. It was, but they also had to win those matches and they got to the semi-finals. And I think that was a squad that has been improved upon since then. Like, they've chucked away fat like Eric Dyer from that squad and improved upon it again. Got better players in the midfield, and Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice in that front area, in that last third area. They've got remarkably creative players like Jack Grealish and Jadon Sancho, who are held in reserve. They're playing tournament football. They're doing enough to get over the line in each and every game. Tactically, Southgate, as I mentioned last night, got it right against Croatia, got it right again last night against Germany. You can only play what's put in front of you. They're beating what's in front of them, so there's no suggestion that they can't go all the way to a final and possibly compete in that. But I don't think it should be a surprise to anybody, really.
No, I think that's very fair.
The argument against that, though,
go on.
Like, there is an argument against that, which is that England are so stacked in the final third, particularly with the talent that they have, that they should be winning, but perhaps winning better than they are currently. Like, to me, it seems crazy to have a player like Jadon Sancho, who has been a goal and assist machine for Borussia Dortmund, one of the best clubs in Europe over the last couple of years, and he can't get a look in on this side. It's almost like Southgate decided to change tact as the finals came around, because England were a really good team to watch, both in the Nations League and in the qualifiers. And I take Richie's point that in previous times, even under Fabio Capello, they would blow the opposition away in the group stages, qualify, and next thing they would get to a finals and they would crumble. And maybe there's something different about this team this time around. But I still think that Gareth Southgate's not getting the most out of the potential within his squad, particularly by playing 6 or 7 defensive players in every game so far in the tournament. Because what happens then is you end up with a double pivot when you're playing against Scotland and you create precious little. And if I was an England supporter going into the game against the Ukraine, my worry would be that there might be a Scotland-like performance there. And even when England scored against the Czech Republic, they never really kicked on in that last game in the group stages. So I don't know if England are going to have it in them to actually break a team down without getting, say, players like Jack Grealish onto the pitch late in the game. It's fine if it works out, but I'd be concerned that there's a flat performance in this England team, and it could well be this weekend in Rome.
Yeah, they're both fair points for sure. It depends whether you're a Southgate fan or not. There's no doubt he has decided to take the more pragmatic point of emphasis here. There's no doubt he's looked at tournament football and said defence first. And they haven't conceded a goal, and it's working out pretty well. But as you say, Will, against a sticky side like the Ukraine where they have to take the game to them, or if they go a goal down, I mean, if Werner had scored early on, you wonder how equipped England might have been to chase a game. Then they're very real concerns. What struck me about Southgate, he was being interviewed by Gabriel Clark then on ITV a couple of hours after the game, and he said, if I pick that team, talking yesterday about the team that played Germany, he said, if I pick that team and that system and we don't win, I'm dead. So he fully acknowledged that people would hate this team, that the omission of Grealish and Foden and Mount would be used to kill him. Like, it's the easiest Monday morning quarterback session of all time. And he knows that. And yet he has to do what he thinks is right, because That's there's a certain bravery in that. Like, he was being called conservative and like a coward and come on and go for it and all this stuff when he named the team. But I thought, in fairness to him, there's a real bravery in doing what he thinks is the best way to win the tournament. Now, it's definitely a reductive plan. There's no doubt it's a reductive plan. But, and Gary Neville had made this point after the Croatia game, I think it's truer even now. Neville was saying after the Trippier selection that, you know, one of Southgate's biggest assets here is, unlike so many other English managers who listened to the press and listened to what fans were saying and were aware of PR and, you know, geez, if I'm going to lose to Germany, if we die on my sword and it's with Grealish in the team and Mount with the team, then, you know, maybe I keep my job and I can explain that away. Whereas losing to Germany with the team he picked yesterday, he'd be in big trouble. Neville was making the point after the Trippier selection that actually Southgate's biggest asset is, unlike so many other English managers, he doesn't care about that stuff and he's confident enough in his own feelings and analysis to go what he thinks is right. And that's, you know, that's commendable in its own way. But the jury's still sort of out in them. I feel like they could win this bloody tournament 1-0 all the way, and we'd be sitting here on Monday the 12th saying, are they any good? Could they have won it better?
Well, like, yeah, but that's the thing. They don't need, like, there is no such thing as much as it goes against every Brian Cloughism. There is no winning it better in situations like this, especially when you haven't won a tournament.
Will's from Offaly. He's a purist.
I know,
he wants the romanticism.
Yeah. He needs a Michael Dignan in the half forward line. Not like the thing about it is, like, their conservatism and their pragmatism hasn't come at a cost. Like, they've progressed to the quarterfinals of European Championships and probably given their opponents in the quarterfinals to the semis. They've gotten to the semi-finals of a World Cup. It's not as if their style of play is holding them back. Rather the opposite. It's pushing them forward. They're different. Like, we're a kind of different nation in that respect, in that we kind of look at our lack of success down to not making the best of what we have. Whereas in actual fact, the absolute essence of tournament football, you know, is winning and is getting through. And there is a niceness and a kind of romanticism about having a philosophy of football and playing a great style of football and making it through to the final stages, etc., etc. But like, the history is littered with teams who played the best football and didn't win a trophy. Like, you look at Hungary in 54, you look at, you know, the Dutch in 74 and 78, and there are others you could go on and on.
Brazil
and say
82, I think.
Brazil in 82 played the most magnificent football. And it's the pragmatic, sensible, slightly cautious teams that get over the line.
Mark Lawrenson was saying yesterday that Southgate and Holland, Steve Holland, his assistant, did an analysis of various tournaments, and they decided that was part of their thinking by the time they'd finished their analysis was pragmatism rules here. That's the way they're going. But like, I totally take Will's point. You do look at the talent and think there's so much more in this team. They could play such better football, but we're not seeing it at the moment. Anyway, Damon Delaney on the way between 9 and 10. I'm sure we'll tease some of that stuff out. We should start the news round. Like I said, Ron Nagara on the way at 8. We have Chris Shields on the show. We have Ursula Jacobs talking hurling. The news round is brought to you by Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Rafa, he's been confirmed. Everton manager, 3 years.
Despite the temperature outside, hell has frozen over. Rafa Benitez confirmed as Everton's new boss today. The former Liverpool manager signed a 3-year contract at Goodison Park to replace Carlo Ancelotti. Duncan Ferguson and former Republic of Ireland goalkeeper Alan Kelly remain part of his backroom team. Earlier this week, Merseyside police said they were investigating a threatening banner left outside the Spaniards' home on the Wirral. Everton fans remain angry at comments Benitez made 14 years ago, referring to them as a small club. But he's told Everton TV that those comments prove the passion that he'll bring to his new job.
I have been in Madrid, I have been in Naples, defending Napoli, I had been in Valencia, so Tenerife, Extremadura, Liverpool, so every single club that I was there, I was fighting for them. So if you analyze things in the context, what you are expecting from your managers, you fight for your club, and I will do that. So since I'm here, I will fight for my club. I will try to win every single game, and it doesn't matter the opponents or the rivals. So it's something that you have to do. It's in your nature that you have to try to do your best. And why a lot of fans in a lot of these cities, they love me, is because I was giving everything for them. So then if you analyze this in the context, I think it's very clear that I will do the same. I'm happy with that.
Thoughts on this appointment, Will?
It'd be interesting to see, Joe, if he lost the 3 years of his contract, which he's just signed, because this is Everton's 5th manager in as many years. Bizarrely enough, we've had a former Limerick boss in Sam Allardyce and former Barcelona and Real Madrid bosses in Koeman and in Ancelotti being part of the management team at Everton. look, last year it promised so much in the first half of the season under Ancelotti. It looked like the signings were bedding in nicely. They were right up around the top of the table up until around Christmas, and then, much to the chagrin of Seamus Coleman, who will have an OTB AM tomorrow morning, they didn't finish in Europe and they ended up in 10th place. Like, I wasn't surprised that once the Real Madrid job came up again, that Ancelotti would be attracted back to the Spanish capital as part of their rebuild, as opposed to staying around at Everton for a second season. And if you're an Everton fan, you're probably thinking that it would be a lot easier to accept Rafa Benitez as the first manager to ever take over Liverpool and Everton if this was the Rafa Benitez of 10 seasons ago, as opposed to now, where Rafa was hot property really after he left Liverpool. But, you know, there is that feeling, I think, that the game may well have passed by the Rafa Benitez tactics. Like, if you think about Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp, where their teams are, you know, based around pressing, they're based around playing high-octane football. That has never really been Benitez's style. For the best part, they've played counter-attacking, and it was about getting the ball moved up quickly. You could argue Liverpool were brilliant in the 2008-9 season, particularly playing that style when they had Steven Gerrard and Fernando Torres in the form of their life. But since then, there is that feeling that time may well have passed. I think he's 59 at this stage, Rafa Benitez behind. It's not as exciting a prospect as it would have been previously, and then you have to factor in the former Liverpool factor to it as well. I think he's been very sensible in terms of keeping the staff from last season around. They might help to actually bed things in, but with the exception of his run at Newcastle, where he did very well with both hands tied behind his back, I would have to question a lot about Rafa Benitez over the last 5-6 years particularly.
Big Dunk is there. If you just show Big Dunk likes you, then you're in with them all. That's the key here. A hug from Big Dunk. So, Richie, 2 COVID stories. One here at home and the GAA, and then the fallout from England, Scotland, which we'll get to. So the government are bringing plans forward, for the weekend.
Yeah, we knew this was going to happen as of Monday anyway, but it has been brought forward by 48 hours in terms of increasing match attendances for the weekend. 500 fans will be permitted at GAA grounds with a capacity of 5,000 or more for those matches on Saturday and Sunday, except for Croke Park, because 8,000 fans are going to be there for Saturday's Leinster hurling semi-final double bill, which is serving as a pilot event for fans' return. On the other side of that, on a note of caution, Public Health Scotland say almost 1,300 people who had travelled from Scotland to London for a Euro 2020 game have tested positive for COVID-19 over the course of the past week or so. Sorry, just scrolling down my thingy here. It's gone mad at me. Of those, it's thought almost 400 were at Wembley for the Scotland-England match on the 18th of June while they were infectious. Most cases of COVID-19 in Scotland linked to events around the championship were people aged between 20 and 39.
Yeah, I mean, that is a big number, isn't it? 400 alone at Wembley, 1,300 in total who travelled down. I was mentioning to you, Richie, I think last week, it was an anecdotal point, but I just had seen a tweet which had caught my eye from a fella who'd been down at the England-Scotland match, and he was saying he'd been down on the train all the way, carriage packed out, everybody singing and screaming and doing all the things you're not meant to do. And he said he has promptly been tested positive for COVID, and all his family laid low with COVID, and it wasn't good at all. And I was saying, geez, I wonder, has that anecdotal experience, was it going to show up in figures? And here we are.
Pubs has been a big thing.
Yeah.
Apparently the pubs has been a big thing, and the congregating in terms of drinking outdoors as well has been massive in terms of those infections. And you would worry as well, without wanting to be a Sally worrywart, but you look at the scenes yesterday at Wembley where people were diving and jumping all over each other, absolutely enthusiastic and fully within their rights in one respect to be enjoying the moment as England fans, but very few of them masked. You would hope a lot of them are vaccinated, if not all of them, but you see that many people that close together and you kind of tug at your collar a little bit, and you worry what might be coming down the track, particularly as they're only ramping up the attendance numbers for Wembley from this point forward.
Yeah. So Wimbledon then?
Yeah, women's second seed Arina Sabalenka had to battle from a set down to book her place in the third round today. The Belarusian beat British wildcard Katie Boulter 4-6, 6-3, 6-3. Earlier in the day, fifth seed Bianca Andreescu, also former US Open champion, lost in straight sets to Elise Cornet. Ninth seed Belinda Bencic fell in straights to Kaya Juvan, while the third seed Alina Svitolina needed 3 sets to beat Belgium's Alison van Uytvanck. Last night, of course, saw the sixth seed Serena Williams retire 6 games into her first round match with Alexandra Sasnovich. Currently on court is home favourite Andy Murray. He won the first set of his second round match with the German qualifier Alexander Otte by 6-3. Murray is cruising in the second as well. He leads with a break at 3-1. Elsewhere in the men's draw today, defending champion Novak Djokovic brushed aside the 2018 finalist Kevin Anderson in 3 sets. Queen's Club winner Matteo Berrettini beat Guido Pella in 4 sets, and he'll play the lucky loser Bocic van der Zandschulp in round 2. There are also belated first round wins today from Nick Kyrgios, Gael Monfils and Grigor Dimitrov. Kyrgios was speaking after his match as well and was asked about the slippery courts that have claimed Adrian Martino and Serena Williams so far in this tournament, and nearly himself.
Look, I don't think the rain helps, especially the outside courts, when the grass gets slippery and a bit unpredictable, where the grass is a little slippery, where you can't really see it, any of that stuff. But look, it's just sometimes just what happens on the grass, especially I think the game's evolved now where there's so many rallies and players are so capable of making, so many returns or making that extra ball where the body's actually not supposed to be in those positions type thing, and people slip over and then injuries happen. And then, the load as well. Like, these players have played a lot of matches and the tennis schedule is brutal. Like, it's absolutely brutal. Like, you got the French Open, then you got like straight on the grass, and you just expected to bring out your best tennis from week to week. So, look, I don't know if there's a solution, but it just is what it is on the grass. Like, I think on the clay, it's obviously, you got the sliding on hard court, like it's a bit more, safer, but the grass has just got that unpredictable factor where it's tough. You can't really, there's no guarantee that anytime you go out there that you could be injured. Like, it is what it is,
It does tend to become less slippy as it goes on. It's particularly lush at the moment. I was watching BBC earlier on, and Sue Barker and Boris Becker were on, and they were chatting about the situation, and one of them raised the point about the footwear, why tennis footwear hasn't changed.
Sam Smith raised that point when she was with the two of them. She said that the footwear hasn't changed, and it doesn't evolve in the same way that you might see a certain type of stud for a certain type of pitch in football or rugby. You basically just have the same soles on the same shoes for the entire duration of a 2-week tournament when the surface is changing all the time underneath you. And like Tim Henman raised a similar point in that conversation as well. He said that the grass, has changed, or was legitimately changed in all the courts from 2001 to 2002 to a more durable kind of grass, which is why it doesn't wear out to the same degree that it did in the 70s and 80s during those matches. And we've seen a reduction in the serve volleying kind of winners like Richard Krajicek and Pete Sampras, whereby it was just serve volley the whole way, and people are slamming aces down people's throats, and the game is over pretty quickly. Games are longer lasting, the grass is more durable. You add in the X factor of the moisture and the increased, it's supposed to be an increased in terms of humidity under the roof, but hasn't actually materialized at all this year. But you add all those factors in, and you're going to have slips. So maybe it is a case, like Sam Smith mentioned, of looking at the footwear and seeing if there's adjustments that can be made there.
Tour de France?
Yeah, defending champion Tadej Pogačar smashed today's 5th stage of the Tour. He was 19 seconds faster than his nearest challenger, Stefan Küng, on the individual time trial. Matthew van der Poel did enough to retain the leader's yellow jersey, but Pogačar is now just 8 seconds behind the Dutchman. Meanwhile, a spectator who caused a mass crash on Saturday's opening stage has reportedly been arrested. Nearly all of the peloton was wiped out on stage 1 when Tony Martin collided with a fan's cardboard sign, causing a domino effect amongst the riders. A woman is believed to be in custody in France, accused of involuntary causing injury, and faces a fine of €1,500.
Ouch. It's a costly mistake, Will.
Yeah, one of the weirdest things I've ever watched in terms of live sport as well, Joe, because I remember going to the Tour de France when I came to Ireland before, and I remember when the peloton were coming down the road, you could almost feel the bikes coming along, and you could definitely hear the sound of all of those wheels coming in, and what was a pretty narrow road that they were coming down during that instant on Saturday afternoon. And I just couldn't believe it, because one of the most bizarre things were that spectator had the sign out, clearly trying to get onto the TV cameras. That was the intention, as opposed to becoming any kind of nuisance by walking out onto the road. So very much involuntary. But it was like the sign gets hit, and yet the spectator managed to spin around after Tony Martin hit it, and then was able to just walk away and actually go back up onto the ditch entirely unharmed, while 40 or 50 bikes all came down one after another, and some serious damage done to some of the cyclists there, including the former champion Chris Froome. It was just one of the most bizarre incidents I've ever seen, and I don't know how the spectator didn't hear or feel the bikes being a lot closer than where they got before she actually moved.
Yeah. Look, not her finest moment, obviously, but I don't think fining her €15,000 sounds very fair either. Like
1,500, but yeah.
Oh, 1,500.
100, yeah.
All right, okay.
15,000.
Throw the book at her, fine.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, like, there is an issue around fan behaviour on major bike races at the moment, because I'm trying to remember if it was the Tour or it might have been the Vuelta last year, whereby I think Sam Bennett was disqualified in one of the Tour stages because it might have been him even, but there was a definite disqualification whereby somebody had to weave to avoid a sign, or at least they claimed they were weaving to avoid a sign being held out by somebody on the final straight on one of the sprints. And we often see, like, obviously when they're heading up mountains and winding narrow passes, that there are fans who aren't afraid of getting in on the action as well. And even with, supposed social distancing is supposed to be ongoing, but people have gotten braver, and you can read braver as more stupid as well if you want in these scenarios. And it is something that needs addressing, whether they're going to have to keep the fans at a distance. I don't think the race organisers want that, because in essence you do like that closeness between the fans, the supporters, and the bike race itself. But people need to use a bit more cop on than your one had on Saturday.
Yeah. Just seen some breaking news here on Sky Sports News in front of me. No huge surprise, but Manchester United have agreed a deal in principle for Jadon Sancho. 73 million sterling is the fee. So that
might get a game now, Joe.
Like that's going ahead. Yeah, I know.
Well, he's a Man United player.
So there you go. Man United agree deal in principle to sign Jadon Sancho from Borussia Dortmund for a fee in the region, say Sky Sports, of 73 million sterling. That's some breaking news just in the last while. One other cycling story, Rich.
Rashford to delete his tweet either, Joe, after last night. I presume you saw that Marcus Rashford confirmed that Sancho deal and later deleted his tweet.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
These things happen, I suppose. So that's Jadon Sancho. And there was one other cycling story, Rich.
Yes, Sam Bennett won't represent Ireland at this summer's Olympic Games. The green jersey winner in last year's Tour de France has a knee injury that prevented him from racing in this year's Tour. However, the parcours for the Olympic road race were too hilly for Ireland's sprint specialists. Dan Martin, Nicholas Roach and Eddie Dunbar will compete in the road race. Dunbar will be making his Olympic debut, and Roach will also be competing in the time trial over there in Tokyo.
Okay. So, last couple of stories then. Some signings elsewhere, Jadon Sancho aside.
Yeah, Leicester City have continued their fine work in the transfer market, signing Patson Daka from RB Salzburg. The Zambian international striker scored 27 goals in 28 Austrian Bundesliga games last season, and it's believed Daka has cost Leicester €26 million. While Ireland head coach Richie Murphy has made just the 2 changes to a starting 15 for tomorrow's under-26 nations clash with England. The game at Cardiff's Arms Park looks set to serve as a de facto Grand Slam decider, with both sides opening the campaign with back-to-back bonus point wins. Leinster duo Temi Lasisi and Sam Ilo come into the front row, either side of provincial teammate Ronan Loughnane. They replace Jack Boyle and Mark Donnelly, who both drop to the replacements bench.
Okay, fellas, thanks very much for that. Richie McCormick, Will O'Callaghan, cheers. That is the news round for this evening. Short ad break. We're talking hurling next. Ronan O'Gara on the way after 8.